welcome to The Olive Tree with me, Julia Fisher, the programme that brings you news from believers in Israel, Jewish, Arab and Palestinian people. Ofer Amitai is the pastor of a Messianic congregation in Jerusalem, and recently, during October 2020, with the pandemic still gripping nations of the world, another momentous news story emerged, namely the new friendly relationships between Israel and the Arab nations of the UAE and Bahrain. Was Ofer as surprised as the rest of us?
All of us were in some ways, obviously. What has come out is that there have been all kinds of going-ons in the background with UAE, with other nations. So this has been cooking for a while. I think, first of all, we're thrilled because they've just announced that Jordan has agreed with Israel that we can fly over their airspace. That means that we're no longer just an island
Yes.
in the Middle East, but we can actually fly to Australia and to other places and not lose half our life doing it by having to go around. So also, to be honest, it just feels good. It feels good that it's possible pretty soon that I could fly to Dubai. Of course, with COVID, nobody can fly anywhere, but it will come, and when we had peace with Jordan, even though now it's pretty much of a cold peace, we were thrilled. We always have been with Egypt. It shows something. I think that the Arab nations around that have not had any beef with Israel, so to speak, are waking up to the fact that the time has come to accept Israel's existence and to go ahead and do business with it and not take, oddly enough, the Palestinian narrative as the only narrative. I don't think they have abandoned them, but I think they have basically been saying, look, there's got to be another way. So this is thrilling because I think it will also bring the Palestinians around. I think finally they'll see, wait a minute, we're going to lose out if we don't get back to the negotiating table and do something. So it's thrilling. It's thrilling. We have to remember this is not happening in a vacuum in this way, that Iran has been a catalyst in all this. These Emirates and even Saudi Arabia, they are very fearful of Iran, and they should be. And I think this has a lot to do with what has happened, but regardless of the reason, it's a wonderful development, obviously, and it has
Is this
great potential.
just politics, though, Ofer, or is there something biblically prophetic about what we're seeing happening?
That is a good question. I mean, Isaiah 19 speaks of Assyria and Egypt, for instance, but it may be. Let me put it this way. It's too early to tell. I think we need to let it mature. You have to remember that these are, Saudi Arabia, for instance, is an ultra-Islamic nation. That's not going to change tomorrow. Israel is in its own thing of ultra-Orthodox and Judaism and stuff. So I think what we're seeing first is the political economic. That's the step that is being taken. Sudan wants to get in on it because they need it. Everybody loses out if it doesn't happen. And everybody has a huge amount to profit from, especially now with the economies the way they are, from a peace agreement and these kind of relationships. I have to say, though, that beyond that, I have sensed something that is always surprising but wonderful. I don't even know if I should call it that, but kind of a joy. For the UAE to say that they're already preparing for Jewish people to come by making kosher this. Of course, they have the halal thing, so that's not a big deal for them. There is like a joy of exploration, like let's find who we each other are. So that's what I feel in the air beyond the politics and the economy. This is something that is unmistakable to me. It's just in the bud, but this joy of after so many years of hatred and animosity, all of a sudden that's over. Animosity and hatred is very difficult to carry for a long time. It's much easier to be friendly. So I was surprised by it. And it reminded me of times in which we have worshiped together with Arab believers from Lebanon, from Syria in years past, in undisclosed place, I can't say, but I cannot explain to you the release of joy in the air that we had in worshiping together the Lord Yeshua. They were all people who, regardless of if some had difficulty with it or not, they understood from the word God's intention to restore Israel to the land and to himself. It's hard for some of them, but on the whole, again, I mean, one time it was a few years after 2006 war, and these Lebanese brothers led us in Messianic song in worshiping the Lord in an Arab country. It was really, I thought it can't get better than this. Well, and it will though, but it was very, very exciting. And this was in the spirit, but I feel a joy that is something parallel. It's not the same, but it's parallel. The other was in the Lord, in Christ. This is more in the natural, but nevertheless, it is a kind of joy.
Truly significant. And, yes. So
yes,
what about the Palestinians, Ofer? Where are they going to be in all this?
You know, as they say, the devil's in the details. But I'll say a few things, and I really don't claim any expertise or something. It's just my opinion. First of all, I think that the Palestinian people are fed up with their leadership. That's one. Now, it's all very complicated by the fact that Hamas is in Gaza, ruling over some of the Palestinians and wants to take over. That's a very difficult thing because they're backed by the Iranians. But I feel that if there was a true change of leadership or in leadership and a willingness to cooperate with this, the Palestinians will benefit from it tremendously. Now, where are the problems? The problems are, of course, when it comes to claiming Jerusalem and all these things, or, you know, on the Israeli side, there are far-right people who will not compromise anything. So both these sides are difficult. And I don't know that there's an answer to it, but definitely if the Palestinians were wise and wanted to benefit their own people, they would get on the bandwagon. You know, the UAR didn't say they abandoned them. They just said, by what we are doing, we actually agreed to freeze the annexation of Judea and Samaria and all that. So, you know, I'm not coming from the political side, but more as a praying person into the promises of God and let him figure it out and reach out, of course, and cooperate wherever I can with, for instance, my Palestinian brothers in ministry. So they are losing out and they are cited if they don't get on this. Because if Sudan and the UAR and the other Emirates and Saudi Arabia, my goodness, who is going to back them up? And actually, I have read some things that the Arabs in other nations are saying the Palestinians are corrupt in the government and they're spoiled because they've lived on the UN give-outs and stuff, and they're fed up with it. They want a new day, I think, and it may be time.
So, Ofer, this year, 2020, so far has been full of surprises for the whole world. As you say, you're a praying man. When you look to the future, what are your prayers for Israel, for the Middle East at this time? What are you anticipating?
You know what? I'll tell you something. This is kind of something that was funny to me. When 2020 came, some of the more spiritual Christians and stuff said, 2020 is perfect vision. We're going to see straight. This is,
oh, wow.
And I have to laugh. I laughed at it from the beginning. I said, really? Is that what it's going to be? I don't have, here's where, to me, where I live, at least, my prayers are not changing because I've been praying eternal things. My direction is not changing because the direction that the Lord has always given us is toward himself and pursuing the knowledge of the Lord and being in his word and praying. So, we've prayed eternal promises. We teach that to call on the name of the Lord means to pray that he would fulfill his promises. And not just for Israel, for the body, for what he said he would do. And so, if anything, this time has been a catalyst for me to feel this is right. Don't go after the moment, go after eternity. And if you do go after eternity and eternal things and eternal truths, you're not going to miss the moment. And you're going to be in the moment because you are standing on a rock that doesn't move with time or with economies or anything else. So I'm going to continue by God's grace alone. I'm going to continue to do my best to point people to the Lord, to insist they must grow and seek his face until he becomes the delight of their heart. I'm going to be emphasizing, and I've been saying to people, it's funny. I'm not a prophet in any way, but I've been saying to people for years, do you think that the world is always going to go on this way? Do you really think the economies are always going to go this way? Wake up. Seek the face of God. And people looked at me like, okay, he's a little flip, because reality is stronger than everything to many people. So now, at least, I can say to them, folks, even if this is over, it's not over. Because if not this one, there's going to be another spillover, another thing, another crash. Mankind is not getting better. I believe that this is going to give me a stronger platform to push eternal things on people and to be ready. I told them, and I'm saying it to whoever would listen, even if things go back to normal, by God's grace, I'm never going back to normal. Because normal is not normal.
You've been listening to Ofer Amitai, a Jewish pastor in Jerusalem. The Olive Tree Reconciliation Fund is a Christian charity based in the UK that supports the needs of both Jewish believers and Arab or Palestinian Christians living in Israel and the wider Middle East. If you'd like to know more about our work and receive our free bi-monthly newsletter, please visit our website, olivetreefund.org. Meanwhile, join me at the same time next week for another story from the Olive Tree. Until then, goodbye.